Welcome back. We are debating John Kerry's call to action on climate change, and we're also debating Newt Gingrich's call for him to resign. Now, here's a good question. Should serious people focus on global political instability, terrorism, failing states, nuclear weapons? Or should we focus on global climate instability, droughts, floods, extreme weather? Here's the correct answer. Yes, both. Because climate disruption will make every other national security problem worse. Big floods, crazy weather, that can destabilize governments, especially weak governments. That makes it easier for extremists to grab power or to grab nuclear weapons. There's no food, people riot. When the oceans rise, people flee. You can imagine a world with some of these scenarios with 1 billion climate refugees. That's a dangerous place. Look, all these issues are interrelated. It's not delusional to focus on climate disruption. It's delusional not to. So now, back in the Crossfire, we've got Joe Cicierone, I think I got it right that time, and Bill Kristol. I want to start with you. Let's just go back to this point about the Pentagon and its concern. You don't deny the science of climate change. You believe that something could be happening here. We should take it seriously. Don't you think?
Well, clearly the Earth has warmed. I don't think it's much different. Debate about that over 100, 150 years. I think it's flattened out over the last 17 years. The question is how much human agency matters and what the consequences of that warming are. Are they good or bad?
But don't you think the Pentagon is right to take this seriously? John Kerry's getting beat up for saying it's a national security issue. Don't you think the Pentagon is right to take it seriously and would be wrong not to take it seriously?
I love hearing Van Jones say the Pentagon is right. I'm going to have our guys at the Weekly Standard clip that and put that up online and make it really famous.
On this issue, they have miraculously gotten it right.
Look, if this were serious, honestly though, if this were as serious as you guys, I guess, I'll seriously think it is, shouldn't the President of the United States be actually spending political capital to do something about this, both internationally and domestically? The Democrats control the United States Senate, the last I looked. People think that cap and trade is a way to address this. Why aren't they bringing that up for a vote? Why aren't they trying to get a discharge petition in the House? This is what I think is annoying. No. I think what sort of infuriated Newt, and I would share Newt's infuriation about I guess fury is the word, fury about this, which is, it's just talk. It's not nonsense. If this were as serious as you guys think, the President of the United States would be using all the political capital he had to actually change U.S. policy, and he's doing nothing.
First of all, that's just wrong on the facts, and you know it. He just talked about putting $1 billion together to try and do something about this. He did go before Congress. The House actually passed a resolution. Weren't able to get it through the Senate. This president has done more. He put $36 billion in the stimulus package trying to move the ball forward on green energy, and the price of solar has come down. This president has done a great deal. The Republicans, unfortunately, have turned this into an article of faith and some sort of litmus test. You have to be against any smart action, and I think that's what I think. I
actually don't agree. Honestly, the Republicans were sort of on their heels after 2008. They were open to being persuaded. The science is cutting against the president and against you guys on this.
Joe, let me put this in context again, because my reaction to the notion of making this the biggest threat. Now, let's talk about reality from a different angle. Right now, and I think we're going to go to Kiev to show you, Kiev is literally burning. This is a live picture from Kiev. One of the people watching Kiev burn, who has a very deep interest in this, is Vladimir Putin, who was described by former Secretary of Defense Gates, who says when he looked into his eyes, he saw a stone-cold killer. Now, if you're Vladimir Putin, and you're looking at the American back down in Syria, you're looking at the American back down on Iran, where the Iranian Ayatollah just Monday said the negotiations will accomplish nothing. Doesn't mind if we talk. They'll accomplish nothing. And you're now seeing the Secretary of State put his political capital on global warming. Don't you think from Putin's standpoint, as a guy who thinks of himself as probably the toughest guy on the planet, that this is all sort of a joke? I mean, he has no interest in those things. His interest is what's going to happen to Kiev, and he has no interest in the president once again drawing a line, as he did this afternoon, as he had done earlier in Syria, because Putin doesn't believe the president's going to do anything.
I think it's a tragedy that you're making this a political football. This was a very important speech on a very important topic. It's one speech that the secretary gave. I was there October 28th when John Kerry, at a Plowshares event, gave a very great, terrific speech on non-proliferation, on stopping the spread of these weapons. And he's talked about Iran repeatedly, and he's doing something about it. Today, John Kerry spoke out against the violence in Kiev. Today, the President of the United States spoke out against against the violence in Kiev. They're taking action, trying to get targeted sanctions against the top officials of the Ukraine government. They're organizing with the EU, and hopefully the EU will act tomorrow. So, of course, they're doing all these things. This is one of the important things that you have to do at the same time.
The fact is, to govern is to choose. So, should they put their capital on climate change? Should they put their capital on arranging their weapons? Should they put their capital in dealing with Putin? They're clearly not capable of doing all of them simultaneously.
Well, you don't doubt that John Kerry is trying to craft, you don't think he's going to get it, but trying to craft an Israeli-Palestinian peace framework. He spent much more time on that than on climate change. You don't doubt that he's serious about Iran, at least in the amount of time that he spent on it, right?
But he's delusional on all three. I mean, he thinks that...
Well, you disagree with his policy, but he's clearly putting his capital
but the Israeli Palestinian thing is crazy. I mean, the whole Middle East is blowing up. The one part of it that's reasonably quiet and stable for now is the West Bank, and that's what Kerry is focusing on.
We don't want to go into why the Middle East is so unstable. For example, the war in Iraq, that was one of the greatest strategic blunders in U.S.
I'm happy to go into that if you want to have the rest of the debate on that, but it doesn't excuse Kerry one way or the other. Incidentally, who voted? Which Democratic senator from Massachusetts voted for that war?
We're talking about
I believe his name is John Kerry.
And it's a mistake, and he's been held accountable for that. So you don't get everything right, as you well know. So, but we're talking about capital and where you put our capital.
You're just now saying that despite this speech, and again, I only reacted to what he said.
Yeah.
I didn't make it up. Despite this speech that said this is maybe the greatest danger we're faced with, you're now saying, oh, but look, he's really putting his capital in Palestine and Israel. He's really putting his capital over here.
It turns out that America's government has to do more than one thing at the same time. And so it turns out also when you have these interlocking problems, you have to do more than one thing. But he's not putting his capital anywhere. My problem is different from Deuce. We're not doing anything about anything. That is not true. And Joe had this nice list of all the things we were doing, and 9 out of the 10 things were things we're saying. The president spoke out on this. The Secretary of State spoke out on that. We're alarmed by this. We're appalled by that. Are we doing anything? You would be the first person to applaud John Kerry. I think if you designed a Secretary of State, you would design John Kerry. He's energetic. He's creative. He's going everywhere. He's trying to show American president and resolve. And you are sitting here saying that he's the worst. I think you should say one positive thing about John Kerry's at least effort to do something about Israel and Palestine. No. He's a much worse Secretary of State. Terrible! He's a worse Secretary of State than Hillary Clinton, Madeleine Albright, and other Democrats.
Let me ask you all to stay here. We want you at home to weigh in on today's fireback question. Do you agree with Secretary of State Kerry's assertion that climate change is perhaps the most fearsome weapon of mass destruction? Tweet yes or no using hashtag Crossfire. We'll have the results after the break. We'll also have our outrages of the day, including the Obama administration's latest attack on freedom of the press.